What if Doctor Doom isn't just coming to destroy the Avengers? What if he's been preparing for this moment for years? Because after watching this trailer over and over, I noticed something that completely changes how I'm looking at Doom's story. Loki, the TVA, He Who Remains, the Void, Sentry, Nightcrawler, even the way Doom lands through that shattered glass. There are way too many connections here for them to be random. And the craziest part? Some of these shots might be showing us where Doom got his power in the first place. And so let's break this entire trailer down. The trailer opens with Doctor Doom sitting in front of what looks like a massive citadel. And in front of him, something is literally growing or forming inside this strange green energy. We don't know exactly where that energy comes from yet, but the location is what immediately caught my attention, because this could very easily be the same citadel associated with He Who Remains. And if that's true, we have a massive problem, because think about the timeline. By the end of the timeline, technology has evolved to an insane level, and yet we're supposed to believe He Who Remains was still operating from a giant, ancient-looking citadel? Why? Unless Doom has taken control of it, or unless he has been using something He Who Remains left behind. And that's where this theory gets interesting. My theory is that this was originally He Who Remains' citadel, and Doom has essentially repurposed it. He Who Remains may have spent years studying the timeline and preparing a specific sequence of events, because if everything had continued normally, eventually an incursion could have been triggered, and that could lead to Victor losing his wife and children, which would eventually push Victor toward creating the kind of reality we've been expecting from Doom. But what if He Who Remains was trying to prevent that? What if he created or manipulated a specific timeline where Doom never became the version of Doom we're expecting, and then Loki changed everything? Once Loki took control of the multiverse, the entire structure of reality was rewritten. Incursions could start happening randomly, different timelines could develop completely differently, and that means Doom's entire life may have been altered. So there's a real possibility that Loki indirectly becomes one of the reasons Doctor Doom exists in this form. And if Doom eventually discovered that connection, it would explain why he has such a strong reason to target Loki. It could also explain why Doom's version of the Citadel looks so similar to the place associated with He Who Remains. Maybe Doom didn't build it, maybe he inherited it, and then modified it for himself. Now let's talk about that green energy, because there are only a few characters we've seen consistently associated with this kind of green magical energy: Loki and Hela. And Hela becomes especially interesting here, because Hela can literally resurrect dead soldiers and manipulate them through her power. And what does Doom appear to be doing in this trailer? He seems to be awakening or controlling an entire army of Sentinels. So what if Doom isn't simply creating these beings? What if he's using some combination of Loki's magic and Hela's abilities to control them? We don't know that yet, but the visual language is absolutely intentional. And then there's something even more important. Inside that green energy, there's a symbol, a specific logo, and that same symbol appears connected to Doom's hand, which makes me think this isn't just random energy. That symbol could actually be the source or conduit of his magic. It could even become the key to stopping him later. And then we get Doom's armor. He appears to have two completely different looks. One is extremely clean and almost regal. The other is darker, rougher, and much more battle-worn. So are we actually getting two versions of Doom, or is it simply the same Doom using two different suits? Because the clean armor could be designed to make him look like a legitimate ruler, someone who wants the Avengers to believe he's the good guy, while the damaged armor represents what he really is underneath, a villain. But there's another tiny detail on the rougher suit that might be much more important. There's what looks like a small ribbon or patch wrapped around his hand. I tried looking closely at it, and it almost appears to have some kind of writing or design on it. And I have two theories. Maybe that ribbon is connected to Doom's wife or children, something he keeps with him to remember them. Or the ribbon itself could be connected to his power. Maybe removing it somehow weakens him. Maybe it's a magical object. And if Doom is carrying something connected to his family throughout the movie, that could give his character a much more emotional layer. Because underneath all that armor, this could still be Victor trying to hold on to the people he lost. Now look at Doom's surroundings. When he's shown in that intimidating shot, there's something lying beside him, and behind him, there's another figure or creature that almost looks like it's standing there. That makes me wonder if Doom has built his army entirely around magic and sorcery. And if that figure is Doctor Strange, then things get even crazier, because Doctor Strange variants are some of the most powerful magic users across the multiverse. Doom could potentially be taking powerful sorcerers from different realities and bringing them under his control. But the big question is, How does he control them? We have no clear answer. Maybe Doom isn't controlling their minds directly. Maybe he's controlling the magical forces that created or empowered them, and that would explain why his army seems to consist of characters connected to magic rather than simply normal soldiers. There's also something interesting about the location itself. Doom and these characters appear to be standing on a huge, elevated platform, and underneath it there's this strange, glowing environment. If you compare the visual design with what we've previously seen in the TVA, it looks surprisingly similar, especially the gold tones, that same massive elevated architecture, that same strange golden atmosphere. So there's a possibility we're actually looking at a TVA-related location. And that brings us to one of the biggest details in the trailer. The TVA appears to have been attacked. Remember those shots showing the TVA before the major events begin? There are sequences showing people moving through what looks like the TVA's television-based system, but the TV itself appears damaged. And there's another incredibly subtle detail. Miss Minutes seems to glitch. For just a split second, something about her appearance doesn't look right. That kind of glitch has happened before when something interferes with the timeline or TVA system. So what if Doom actually entered the TVA? What if he attacked the TVA directly? And what if that attack is connected to Loki's power? Because if Doom understands how the TVA works, he could potentially understand how Loki's multiversal system works too. And according to one rumor, Doom may even kill Loki in an extremely brutal way. There's a rumor that Doom could literally crush Loki's heart, and at this point, I'm starting to wonder, how many times is Loki gonna die? The guy cannot catch a break. There's another weird detail. Whenever Loki is shown in the TVA-related footage, he doesn't always have that iconic green appearance, and Doom himself is wearing green. So there's a theory that Doom could somehow have taken or copied part of Loki's power. Maybe that's why his green magic looks the way it does. Maybe Doom's green cloak isn't just a design choice. Maybe it's actually connected to Loki. And if that's true, it could explain why Thor is so emotionally triggered when he sees Doom. Because maybe Thor realizes exactly what Doom has done. Maybe that's why we eventually get Thor versus Dr. Doom. And the emotional reason could be as simple as, you brought my brother back, and now you're going to pay for what you did to him. An actual Thor and Loki connection would make that fight hit much harder. But then we get one of the most misunderstood shots in the entire trailer. Doom appears to fly through a window and perform a classic superhero landing. At first glance, that's exactly what it looks like. But slow it down. Doom isn't actually flying forward, he's moving backward. The glass breaks behind him, which makes it look like somebody actually hit Doom and launched him through the window. He's thrown backward, crashes through the glass, and then catches himself using magic before turning the impact into that dramatic superhero landing. If that's what happened, then someone in that building already knows exactly who Doom is, and that matters, because another shot appears to show the Thing, John Walker, Falcon/Sam, and Ghost together. So there's a strong possibility that one of the characters inside that building realizes Doom is dangerous and attacks him. My first guess, Captain America. And there's an even crazier possibility. Captain America could be using Mjolnir, because remember that earlier trailer footage where we saw Captain America holding the hammer? That hammer looked damaged, almost shattered. Now look at the object flying past Doom during this impact sequence. It doesn't look like a normal hammer, it almost looks like a broken piece of one. But if Mjolnir has already been damaged into multiple pieces, what we're seeing could simply be the handle or another fragment flying past Doom. So the sequence could actually be connected. Captain America receives the broken Mjolnir, and moments later he uses it against Doom. And why would Captain America attack Doom? Because another rumor makes this extremely personal. There are claims that Doom may kill Captain America's son James directly in front of him. If that's true, then Doom wouldn't just be fighting Captain America. He'd be deliberately pushing him into a rage, and that could explain why Steve attacks him so aggressively. Thor could also be present during the same confrontation, because Thor is shown flying into the same general environment. So we could potentially be watching multiple heroes converge on Doom at the same location. And then comes Thor versus Doom. Notice something important. That same building appears in the background, and if you zoom in, the shattered window is still visible, which would strongly suggest these scenes are connected. Doom appears to go from that formal, clean outfit into his more traditional warrior armor. So maybe the trailer is deliberately rearranging the sequence to hide the transformation. Maybe we're not even seeing two different Dooms. Maybe we're watching the same Doom change from his public persona into his true form. And Marvel may be using the two suits specifically to make us think we're looking at two different versions. Then there's the black magic. Before Doom's green energy appears, we see something much darker, almost completely black. So what is that? There are a few possibilities. It could be death magic, it could be dark magic, or it could be the Void. And this is where Sentry becomes extremely important, because when Sentry becomes the Void, his appearance becomes completely black. In the comics, the Void is essentially a separate entity connected to Sentry, but the movie appears to be changing that concept. Instead of making the Void an entirely separate being, they may be treating it as a manifestation of Bob's trauma and psychological state, which means the power itself still exists inside Sentry. And if Doom has the ability to study or observe powers, he could potentially identify that power inside Bob. And that's supposedly one of Doom's abilities in this movie, the ability to analyze extraordinary powers. And if that's true, Sentry's Void could be exactly the kind of power Doom would want. There's another reason I think this theory might have some weight. In the two teasers we've seen, Sentry appears, the Void appears, and Nightcrawler appears. And Nightcrawler has the ability to teleport through that strange, smoky-looking effect. Now look at Doom's movement. At one point, when Doom appears to fly, the transition almost looks like he's teleporting in the middle of his movement. That makes me wonder, what if Doom isn't simply flying? What if he's using abilities he's taken from other powerful mutants and beings? Maybe Sentry's power, maybe the Void, maybe Nightcrawler's teleportation, maybe other abilities we haven't even seen yet. What if Doom has essentially studied these characters and absorbed their powers into himself? It's only a theory, but visually, the trailer gives that impression. And if Doom actually kills Sentry, I can already imagine the audience sitting there thinking, wait, did he just kill Sentry? Because in the comics, Sentry is ridiculously powerful, so watching Doom casually tear through him would immediately establish just how dangerous this version of Victor is. Now let's talk about Reed and Sue, because this might be one of the biggest confirmations hiding in plain sight. Both Reed and Sue seem to know Victor personally, and they don't necessarily refer to him as Dr. Doom. They call him Victor, and that's important. If they're comfortable using his first name, that suggests they've known him for years, which strongly supports the idea that this Doom comes from Earth 828, the Fantastic Four's universe. And there's another strange detail. Latveria appears to be empty. The throne is basically sitting there without Victor. So what happened? Maybe a massive civil war happened in Latveria. Maybe something happened that prevented Victor from returning. Or maybe Victor lost his wife and children, and that's why he wasn't there. Whatever happened, something clearly seems to have separated Victor from his home, and that could be the emotional foundation for his entire transformation into Dr. Doom. Then there's the Hugh Jackman mystery. There's a hallway where Hugh Jackman's character could potentially appear. And the location looks very similar to the place where Sue and the other Avengers are being addressed. The background colors, the architecture, the overall visual design, it all feels connected. And considering the movie has already been teasing Hugh Jackman, I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't just a random Easter egg. We could actually get a proper cameo, especially because the opening footage seems to tease the possibility of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine appearing. If that happens, the theater reaction is going to be insane. Now, there's another line from Doom that deserves way more attention. He tells the Avengers that they're living lives that were stolen from them, and that he's here to take those lives back. At first, I thought he was specifically talking about Cassie, because of everything connected to her in the quantum realm. But then I noticed Ant-Man. Scott Lang is standing there, and suddenly the line makes a lot more sense. Think about what happened during the Infinity Saga. Scott survived the snap because he was trapped in the quantum realm. Everyone around him disappeared, and then he eventually returned and helped bring everyone back. Technically, Scott was one of the people who made it possible for those lost lives to return. He survived, everyone else disappeared. Then he came back, and through the quantum realm, he became a major part of the chain of events that restored those lives. So Doom could potentially look at Scott and say, you weren't supposed to be living this life. And that's why Ant-Man might be one of Doom's targets. Not because Scott is the strongest Avenger, but because his existence is connected to the restoration of billions of lives. And there's one final thing I really hope Marvel doesn't mess up. Both trailers seem to be using almost the same locations. They're not showing us huge portions of the movie. They're giving us controlled pieces, and honestly, that's exactly what I want. because if Marvel keeps this level of secrecy, the hype for this movie could become absolutely ridiculous. But if they start releasing promotional footage that basically shows the entire movie, I'm going to be pissed. The biggest danger now isn't that the movie won't have enough hype, it already has it. The danger is Marvel giving away too much, because Doctor Doom has become one of the most anticipated villains in the MCU, and if even half of these theories turn out to be true, the movie could be completely insane. So now I want to know what you noticed. Did you catch another hidden detail in the trailer? Do you think Doom is actually using Loki's power? Is that black energy connected to the void? Could Doom really have absorbed Sentry or Nightcrawler's abilities? And most importantly, who do you think actually launched Doom through that window? Drop your theory in the comments, because if Marvel is hiding this much inside a few seconds of footage, there are definitely more secrets waiting to be found. And if you want the next breakdown, you already know where to find me. Until then, keep watching the trailer, because Doom is probably hiding something we haven't noticed yet.